let us move on to the situation in the areas of Asher and Naphtali, otherwise known for some reason by some people as southern Lebanon. Um, what is going on there with the UN UNIFIL? There have been certain recent comment by the Prime Minister Netanyahu with regards to the UNIFIL forces in Lebanon. Please, perhaps tell our listeners what is UNIFIL and what have they been doing for the last few decades?
UNIFIL was a UN peacekeeping organization installed in southern Lebanon.
Obviously, very successful.
You jest. That basically was supposed to put some teeth behind a UN resolution, Security Council resolution, requiring the withdrawal and disarmament of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. This was a resolution which never was upheld by UNIFIL, as the UN Security Force is called. Many of the countries contributing forces to this organization, UNIFIL, are very hostile to Israel. And whenever there was an exchange of fire, always managed to blame Israel rather than Hezbollah. An organization basically that operated right under their noses, quite literally, by setting up mortar and rocket launching positions right next to some of the UNIFIL compounds holding foreign soldiers, which did nothing on any occasion to either stop or apprehend the Hezbollah soldiers that were operating in violation of a Security Council resolution. Okay, so just recently, our army has had to direct fire close to some of the facilities, the Irish facility in particular, because Hezbollah was using them as cover. So instead of complaining about that, the Irish premier launched a broadside against us, and it's been followed by the French, the Italians, the Indonesians, all of them. And what we have asked the UN to do is to evacuate, get out of the line of fire, just move north or leave. Today, the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, correctly indicated that the Secretary General of the UN is basically allowing these foreign peacekeeping forces, or blue helmets as they're called, to be held hostage by Hezbollah. That's what's going on. Well, it isn't going to work this time for Hezbollah, because the army is bound and determined to go after them wherever they are. Now, the Prime Minister of Ireland seems to have forgotten that in 1967, there was a UN peacekeeping force in Gaza. Gaza at the time had been militarily occupied by Egypt. It wasn't part of Egypt, they just occupied it. And right before the Six-Day War, Egypt ordered the removal of the peacekeeping force. And Utant, a Burmese, very delicate emotional disposition, acceded to their demand and pulled the forces out, which led directly, actually, to the Six-Day War. Well, I hate to tell the Irish Prime Minister something, but we're going to soon be in military occupation of southern Lebanon, please God. And at that point, assuming we do the right thing finally and withdraw from the United Nations, we have all the rights in the world to tell the UNIFIL peacekeepers to get out. Now, if they don't, what options do we have? Well, we can mine them in, each one of them, and tell them, if you want out, you're more than welcome to leave. We'll escort you wherever you want to go. But if you don't, you better husband your fuel and your food and your water carefully, because none of it's going to come in. And if we have to shoot down a UN helicopter trying to provide supplies to them, then we'll do it. They have to go. And why we're even part of the United Nations now is something that nobody, whom I respect at least, has been able to explain to me.
You're absolutely correct about that, but it should be pointed out it's perfectly reasonable and necessary and legitimate to make that demand of UNIFIL that it evacuate, even without leaving the United Nations.
We could do that. I guess I'm not mixing kasha and borscht, because frankly, UNIFIL has aided and abetted Hezbollah. As far as I'm concerned, they're a combatant. Plain and simple. And
they have acted for decades as a shield for Hezbollah.
100%. And so we should just use this opportunity. Not that we need to use an opportunity. I mean, just on the merits, we should do this, to just withdraw from the United Nations. Get on with it. Everything our delegation at the United Nations is doing, the consulate in New York, if expanded, could do exactly the same. We don't need to be part of that organization. Thank God. Just recently, it was decided to take over the UNRWA complex in Yerushalayim and turn it into a residential complex, I hope, for Jews. Eventually, if we have any common sense, after expelling the United Nations, withdrawing and expelling the United Nations, they have a wonderful headquarters on an appropriately named location called the Hill of Evil Counsel in Jerusalem. I can't make that one up.
How appropriate.
How appropriate. And that too can be turned over to a housing complex that we desperately need in this city. So there's a lot to be gained by withdrawing from the United Nations. Least of all is the reassertion of our self-respect. Okay. With regard to the peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, you're quite correct. We don't have to withdraw in order to order their withdrawal. But in the event they don't withdraw, then we have to go to the next step, which is to basically mine them in. It's a siege. And tell them, if you want food, water, supplies, anything else you consume, you have to leave. Simple as that. We'll guarantee your security up to the new frontier. So this is just the beginning, because the further north we go in Lebanon, the more of these outposts, UN outposts, we're going to run across. And we better realize sooner than later that we have to get tough with them. I mean, what are they going to do to us? The Irish? They are the most anti-Semitic country in Europe, and that's saying a lot. We owe them no regard at all, no consideration. They want to complain about us directing fire close to or actually at their facilities. Then they should do their job and get rid of the Hezbollah fighters that are sheltering in the shadow of that fort, that Irish fort. Simple as that. Do your job. And if they don't, fine, suffer the consequences.
Moving on, Jonathan, to another report regarding an American, apparently also Jewish, it's not quite clear to me, an American reporter for some obscure far-left website or something like that, engaging in espionage against Israel, of course.
There's a specific issue involved in a more general issue. The specific issue is this individual that works for an avowedly anti-Israel website, far-left website, wrote an assessment, a very detailed assessment, which I've read, of the exact impact points of the latest Iranian rocket barrage There's no reason for this unless you're trying to provide information to the Iranians on how to improve their missile accuracy. Okay, this is called ground truth. Where did the missile actually land? Well, he was rounded up, accused of aiding and abetting the enemy during war. Passport was taken, and the court basically let him go. Now, he doesn't have his passport yet, so he can't leave, I think. And the security services have lodged an appeal, basically saying there isn't a question that this guy committed a hostile act against the state of Israel. Now, this brings up a general question of the rights and privileges of the foreign media. I don't want to get into the local media, but the foreign media in Israel, especially in times of war. Now, straight off the bat, reporting from Israel is a privilege. It is not an automatic right, although the media surrounds itself with extraterritorial rights to almost anything it does and says. But more importantly than that, we have to remember we are in a multi-front war. And one of those fronts, one of them, is the media front. Now, we have a wonderful organization in this country called Honest Reporting. And they are waging our war on that front that the government should be waging. But thank God for Honest Reporting. And it is an organization that deserves our vocal and our financial support because no one else is really doing it. It's run by a very, very close and dear friend of mine, Gil Hoffman, who is doing a wonderful job and is deserving of all of the accolades and praise that we could possibly generate. So the question with these guys are as follows. Let's take this latest guy that just got detained. I would like to know if his social media commentary supports my guess that he is an avowedly pro-terrorist, anti-Israel activist. I wouldn't call that a reporter. I would call that an agent, an enemy agent of influence. As far as the, quote, regular reporters are concerned, from the usual channels, ABC, NBC, The Guardian, God forbid I should mention them, The Guardian and all these others, they too, their reporters also, their social media profiles should be examined closely. And if they are saying pro-terrorist or pro-Palestinian statements, they should simply be barred from coming into Israel or expelled, because they too are agents of enemy influence. Now, a great deal of criticism has been leveled at us for all of the Fakistinian, quote, reporters that have been killed in Gaza since the beginning of the war. Well, first of all, Honest Reporting has been very good at ferreting out who many of these so-called reporters, quote unquote, are. Many of them were, because they're dead now, active card-carrying members of Hamas, or had a long history of vile anti-Semitic statements, clearly showing their commitment to that cause rather than the cause of a free press. As far as I'm concerned, they're valid targets. Because again, in this multi-front war, the media front is just as critical as any other one that we're waging in right now. So I don't know what will happen to this young man, supposedly Jewish, although I don't know what that means anymore. And I think if Honest Reporting could actually look into his social media postings, they're going to find somebody that, well, we really shouldn't have let into this country in the first place. Again, foreign reporting from this country is a privilege, not a right. And during times of war, especially one waged on a multi-front basis, we have to be particularly sensitive to the negative effects, the harmful effect that biased pro-terrorist reporters can inflict on us. So again, people should watch the news and to see exactly what the disposition of this young man is going to be. At the very least, he should be deported immediately. I would rather have him incarcerated for being a spy. I read what he wrote, and it's something a spy would write. I'm sorry. There's no valid reason for the kind of detail he put into this report, describing precisely where the impact of the Iranian rockets were. Who cares? I mean, really, who except the Iranian missileers, the ones trying to figure out why so many of their missiles missed their intended target, would be concerned with this? Nobody except those individuals. So I say the guy is guilty as sin. Put him in jail and just throw away the key. Be done with it.
I was quoting from, first of all, the book of Shemuel Beth, the second book of Samuel, in chapter 22, Perek Kaf Beth, verse 38, Pasuk Lamed Het. And you should be able to see it, I believe, now. It says, very good, Erdefa oyevai wa'ashmidem, I shall pursue my enemies and destroy them. V'lo ashuv, and I shall not turn back. In other words, I will not relent, ad kalotham, until they are completely wiped out. That is one verse that appears in the second book of Samuel. Shemuel Beth, Perek Kaf Beth, Pasuk Lamed Het, chapter 22, verse 38. We have almost the identical idea and sentiment in the book of Psalms, Sefer Tehillim, in chapter 18. Also interestingly, verse 38, here it is, Adof oyevai wa'asirem, I shall pursue my enemies and I shall overtake them. V'lo ashuv ad kalotham, and I shall not turn back until they are completely and utterly destroyed. For those who have any doubt, that is the true teaching, instruction, and sentiment of the Torah with regards to the enemies of Hashem and the Jewish people, which are one and the same by definition. And that is our intention, and that is Hashem's will, and we make no apology, and we have no qualms, and no excuses are necessary. That is the correct, the moral, the necessary, and unavoidable course of action. As always, Jonathan.
I have long wanted those phrases to be the phrases that are sworn to by the soldiers when they're inducted, not the little pamphlets that they're given written by leftist atheists.
We could do away with the so-called ethical code of the army.
What you just read,
and replace it with that one verse. That would do the job. That would do the job.
That's it, completely.
Yes. Well, for that we need to replace the people who author these documents.
That's perfect. All right.
In the meantime, as always, Jonathan, I thank you for your comments, for enlightening us, and I wish you and all our listeners a good year, because this is still the beginning of the Jewish year, which just began 11 days ago. I wish you also a Chag Sameach, that is to say, a happy festival of Sukkot, of Tabernacles.
Same to you.
You and all our viewers. Shalom, unisachon, peace and victory. Al kol oyevenu, over all our enemies, mibayit
Amen.
u'michutz, foreign and domestic.
That's the
May
Amen.
Hashem bless you, together with all of Am Yisrael, with all the Jewish people, and all those who support and identify with the Jewish people. There are many well-intentioned, God-fearing Gentiles around the world who are on our side, believe in what we are doing, and know the truth when they hear it, and support all of the Jewish people's right and just actions. And Hashem will bless all such people, as is mentioned explicitly in the Torah. Those who bless you, I shall bless. States in the Torah, in the book of Bereshith, Genesis, and so it is to this day. Those who bless us and support us will be blessed, and those who curse us, defame us, and obstruct us, and try to destroy us will be destroyed. Shalom, once again, and all the best to you.
Shalom. Gam lechem.
Bye-bye.